SJ, Stongo, Gary 5, Jaho Jefkados, Muskogee Radio, Mabu Hedget, Wedgekis. Thank you all for being with me again in this beautiful Oklahoma weather here today. Gorgeous outside. We are going to be a busy one here today. We've got 3 segments we'll be sharing. First of all, we're going to be speaking to a Native American man who's running for president with almost a couple dozen candidates. There is a Native American. We're going to ask Mark Charles why and what he would intend to do if and when he were to achieve office. In our second segment, we'll be talking with some of our tribal staff people about registration cards, how you're going to need a new one pretty soon, and this is what it is and what it's all about. We'll be talking with those folks to gain that information. And finally, there's a push for a Native American Day in Muskogee. We have some folks from a committee over there who are involved in trying to make that happen. But first of all, let's go on to our program here and see if we can't speak with Mr. Mark Charles. Are you there, sir?
Yate. Hello, Gary.
For our listeners who aren't familiar with you, you are a Dene man, is that correct?
Yes, my father is Dene of the Navajo tribe, and my mother is American of Dutch heritage.
Okay. Now, in this time of the year, we're seeing our country go nuts again. Once the election season starts, we've got over 20 on the Democratic side, and then, of course, the red-haired guy in the White House who intends on running again. And then there's you. So first of all, let's get a real quick capsule of who you are, and then we want to know, why do you want to do it?
Well, thank you. First, allow me to introduce myself. Mark Charles Yunishya, Sin Bakadana Nishle, do Tohiglini Bashichin, Sin Bakadana Dashache, do Toluchini Dashanella. In our Navajo people, among our Navajo people, when we introduce ourselves, we always give our 4 clans. And we're a matrilineal people with our identities coming from our mother's mother. So my mother's mother is American of Dutch heritage, and so I say Sin Bakadana Nishle. Translated, that means I'm from the wooden shoe people. My father's mother, my second clan, is Tohidlini, which is the waters that flow together. My third clan, my mother's father, is also Tsinbake Dine. And then my fourth clan, my father's father, is Todachitni, and that's the Bitterwater clan. It's one of the original clans of our Navajo people. I also just want to acknowledge that you're being broadcast and this radio station is being heard specifically near the Creek Nation. And I want to acknowledge the Creek people and thank them for the stewardship they have of the lands where they're on. And it's an honor to be speaking to the Creek Nation today through your radio show. So thank you very much for having me today, Gary.
Mado. The idea of running for an office like this has always kind of intrigued me. It's sort of like... I used to say it's sort of like leaning into a punch. People are going to tear you to pieces, they'll hate what you're doing. There'll be those who like you. So, we're seeing our country really get divided again. So why would someone want to do it? Why do you think it's important for yourself or for a Native American person to become part of this political process?
Well, yes, to be honest, Gary, I did not grow up dreaming of being president. This was not something that I had in my long-term goals. But over the past probably 10 to 15 years, as I began learning more about the state of the history with our nation, the United States of America, and its genocidal and very colonial history against Native nations here in Turtle Island, as I lived with my family on our Navajo reservation in Arizona and both witnessed and experienced the historical trauma of our people, as well as the intense marginalization and ongoing oppression of Native peoples currently as our nation continues to press forward. Also, as I experienced how in the political process, the Native voice has largely been lost and marginalized from the political process. And as I looked at so many of our the problems we're currently facing, whether it's immigration reform or the destruction of the environment, or even things like income inequality and our crumbling infrastructure and our failing education, our lack of even being able to dialogue well with one another and work well as a nation, I realized that there is a very unique position that our Native communities have within this country. One of the ways that this became very apparent for me was almost 10 years ago, almost 15 years ago, actually, when I was living on a reservation and I was out herding sheep one day with one of our shepherds, one of our neighbors, who was a sheep herder by trade, and he was a boarding school survivor and spoke better Navajo than English. And we were out herding sheep one afternoon, and this was when George Bush was in office, and the national dialogue on immigration reform was just beginning to get introduced at a fairly high level, and the nation was beginning to talk about how are we going to reform our immigration laws. And as we were walking through the fields, I just asked my friend, I said, I'm curious, because the whole nation is talking about immigration reform. I'm curious what your thoughts are. What do you think needs to be done? And he looked at me and he said, well, there's already so many of them here. Maybe we shouldn't worry about borders anymore. Now, if you're anywhere else in the country, you immediately think he's talking about the 14 million undocumented who have come over the southern border. But because we're on the reservation, because we're both Navajo, because he's a boarding school survivor, you have to at least pause and ask, is he talking about the 14 million undocumented or the 300 million undocumented? And I liked that ambiguity so much, I didn't even ask him to clarify. I just kind of left that where it was and began reflecting on it and began actually advocating and teaching that without Native peoples at the table, the United States of America is incapable of comprehensively and justly reforming immigration law. Without Natives at the table, all you have is one generation of undocumented immigrants trying to figure out what to do with another generation of undocumented immigrants, and there's no integrity in the dialogue. And I began to reflect very closely on the fact that as Native peoples, as Native nations, we are the host people of the land. We have been living here sustainably, not problem-free, but we have been living here sustainably for hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands of years. And we have a perspective on issues pertaining to Turtle Island and the governance of these lands that far exceeds that of our colonizers who came in just merely a few hundred years ago.
All right, now let me jump in there. You mentioned the topic of immigration, and one of the hot ideas being kicked around. It's the basis of the current president's platform. We're seeing all this talk about a wall and sending people, the police out to round people up and kind of things like that. Now that's very much an idea that's kicked out into the front of all these campaigns. Now, which makes me kind of look at your effort here. Now, at first glance, so to speak, we think, oh, this guy's crazy. He's got to be nuts trying to take on these massive political machines. But you're not. You're deadly serious here. And tell me about that. People should look at you as a serious candidate.
Absolutely. So first of all, regarding the wall, and I say this publicly almost everywhere I go, that it does not matter whether you're trying to build a wall to keep people out or you're trying to open up the gate to let people in. If you do not have Native nations, the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, at the center of whatever policy you're trying to craft regarding immigration, you have no right to advocate for what you're advocating for. It doesn't matter if you're in possession of stolen property and the people you stole it from are right in front of you. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to keep people out to hoard it for yourself or let people in so you can share it. The just thing to do is to acknowledge the history of what happened and deal with the original injustice, which was the stealing of the land in the first place. And so because our nation has not done this, this is why we're incapable of comprehensively and justly reforming immigration law. Now, in regards to my running as a Native person, living on our reservation, and for 3 years, we were there for 11 years, and for 3 years we lived in a very remote section of our reservation. We were 6 miles off the nearest paved road. We were on a dirt road. We lived in a one-room hogan, a traditional hogan. It had dirt floor and log walls. Our community we lived in had no running water, no electricity. This is where I was out herding sheep that one day with my friend. And while living there, and I would actually phrase this community and most of our Native nations here in the United States as one of the most powerless places in the United States. Most people are not aware, and Indian country is well aware, but even on our reservation during the last decade, we didn't even talk about this great recession we were having, because in a lot of Indian country, 50% unemployment is expected even in a good year. And so, having unemployment at 12 or 15% would be amazing for us. Because jobs are so hard to find, because we don't actually own the land. It's land held in trust for us by the federal government. It's almost impossible to build any wealth or equity. And so we're very aware of these things within Indian country. And I began looking at the dynamic between power and authority. So the United States of America has a ton of power. A week doesn't go by where someone from the government doesn't remind us that we have built the most mighty and powerful military in the history of the world. A day doesn't go by where someone from Wall Street doesn't remind us that we have the most financially wealthy banking system, our financial system, in the history of the world. Now, the United States of America is very obsessed, if I can finish this thought, is very obsessed with power, and power is the ability to act. But you will almost never hear our political leaders talk about authority. The definition of authority is the right of jurisdiction, the permission to act. So while this country may have a ton of power, it does not have very much authority. And so the way I'm framing my campaign, the way I'm working in this process, is I'm not trying to take this process on through a paradigm of power, because I will never win that battle. I am, however, trying to take on this endeavor through a paradigm of authority. What does it mean for me as a Native candidate to speak, not with power, but with authority?
Okay,
what does it mean for me to seek the election, not through power, but through authority?
Right. Now,
and that's a paradigm the country doesn't know how to deal with.
Okay, forgive me my interruption there. I apologize, but
okay.
it brought up a thought here. Now, you've got an ambitious program here that you're undertaking, and, of course, a monumental challenge in the existing political slate of candidates. But you've got a message there that I think that most American citizens are unfamiliar with. I don't think most Americans know what the relationship is between Native American tribal governments and the U.S. federal government. I've heard people saying, well, it's a thing based on race. Well, no, it isn't. It's a political relationship. So with a huge question like that, how are you going to be educating the American electorate?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, which is markcharles2020.com, you will find that I have a 9-minute announcement video regarding my campaign. And in this announcement video, I introduce myself traditionally, and I talk about who my relatives and the family that I come from. And then I go briefly into some of the history, especially some of the foundational problems we're facing as a nation. And I frame my campaign as an 18-month dialogue, because right now our nation doesn't understand its history, and it doesn't know how to talk about it. Our nation doesn't understand how deeply genocidal our past is. When we have the California governor in 1851 acknowledging that there is a war of extermination going on between the white and the Indian race, and it's not going to conclude until the Indian race becomes extinct. When we have presidents like Abraham Lincoln, who 2.5, 3 years after signing the Pacific Railway Act in 1862, after the hanging of the Dakota 38, after the Sand Creek Massacre, and after the Long Walk in New Mexico, he has literally ethnically cleansed the tribes from the states of Minnesota, the states of Wyoming and Colorado, and the territory of New Mexico to make way for this transcontinental railway that they're trying to build to complete their manifest destiny, making Abraham Lincoln one of the most genocidal presidents in the history of our nation. Most Americans don't know this history, and so, therefore, they don't understand how deeply systemic the lie of white supremacy and the genocidal actions of our nation are built in. So we have a lot of people, especially Republicans, who are standing up occasionally and saying, we're the party of Lincoln. We believe all men are created equal. Well, that's not true at all. Abraham Lincoln never said all men are created equal. There is a quote of Abraham Lincoln hanging at the Lincoln Memorial that says, my primary goal in this endeavor is not to save or destroy slavery, it's to preserve the Union. If I could save the Union without freeing a single slave, I would do it. Abraham Lincoln was a blatant white supremacist who never believed people of color and white people were equal.
Now, you've got a message you've got a message there that hits pretty hard. I guess off the initial reaction, it could, turn people against you or start thinking negatively. How are you going to convince voters that you would be the choice that they should be making?
Well, at the heart of my campaign, the primary message of my campaign is I want to build a nation where we the people truly means all the people. Now, it's never meant that. When the Founding Fathers wrote we the people of the United States, they meant, which they defined in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, they meant white landowning men. Abraham Lincoln did not believe we the people meant all the people. The civil rights, as good as it was, did not get us to a point where we the people meant all the people. President Trump does not believe we the people means all the people. We've never decided as a nation that we the people means all the people. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to use the scope of this campaign to have an 18-month dialogue to teach our history and help people to understand how the problems we're facing today are tied to the white supremacy, racism, and sexism embedded in our foundations so that we can move forward. I'm advocating that the United States of America needs a national dialogue on race, gender, and class. A conversation that I would put on par with the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions that happened in South Africa, in Rwanda, and in Canada.
Right, and many of those cases had some rather negative results, if I recall. Now, let me shift gears here for you in the time we've got left. The effort you're taking on there is going to be one certainly of David and Goliath, so to speak, or a flea versus a tiger. How are you going to get out there and vie for national attention when you've got campaigns that can buy TV space and ads and things like that? How are you going to get the name and image of Mark Charles out there?
Well, first thing, I'm starting my campaign in Indian country. I am convinced that if you want to be president of these lands known as Turtle Island, if you want to govern these lands, the most appropriate and respectful place to begin your campaign is not to white landowning men in Iowa and New Hampshire, but to the indigenous hosts of this land. So I'm literally, my campaign is beginning by traveling the nation and speaking first to our native nations, our indigenous peoples who are throughout this entire country, allowing our people, the indigenous nations of this land, to shape my message and to help propel this campaign forward. This has never happened. No one has ever included at the foundation of a campaign seeking the respect, even the blessing of the indigenous hosts of this land.
Okay.
Second, my message is very open to people from the margins. So whether it's women or the LGBTQ community, people of color, it's open to a lot of people from the margins, but that's not the majority of the population. But the group of people who I believe can get behind a campaign like mine and can actually propel it to victory in the White House is millennials. By and large, millennials have also been oppressed by the system. Even across racial lines, they have been laden with a ton of debt, not just personal debt coming from education and other things like that, but national debt, which our nation keeps piling on, waiting for the millennials and future generations to pay off this debt. And right now, millennials are very primed. They're very open to systemic national change. Now, the great thing about millennials is they don't get their news from the normal mainstream media. They get most of their news online. They engage with their friends with issues not through CNN or MSNBC or Fox News. They engage through it online. And at the moment, there's a window of opportunity where you can actually have a national audience, a global audience online through the internet for the price of a library card.
Mark?
And so my goal is to engage millennials and to expose them to this campaign, not by paying millions of dollars in ads to mainstream media companies, but by engaging them very creatively and effectively through an online platform.
Okay, that's quite a challenge. Now, Mark, we've got to wrap things up here. If there's someone out there who is interested in talking with you or obtaining more information about your campaign, how do they go about getting in touch with you?
So the best way they can reach me is through my website, which is markcharles2020.com. They can also find me online. I have a Facebook page for my campaign, which is markcharles2020.com as well. And I also have my personal social media where I'm Wireless Hogan most everywhere. On Facebook, my name is Mark Charles Wireless Hogan. Twitter, Instagram, and even my personal website is Wireless Hogan. And so people can find me online. They can connect with both myself and my campaign. And we are trying to build a very grassroots movement so that we can build a nation where, for the very first time, literally, we the people truly means all the people.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate talking with you. We've been chatting with Mark Charles, a Native American candidate for president. We're going to keep our eye on your campaign. Mark, please keep us in mind and let us know how it goes, and we'll be chatting with you in the future, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. I look forward to that. Actually, coming into your area is on my list of places where I want to begin campaigning. And so I expect to be there even within the next few months.
Okay, well, great. We'll be looking for you. Mado. All right, we have been speaking with Mark Charles, who is a Dene man running for president. We're going to take a short pause here, and we're going to be back with some of our tribal people talking about tribal card registration and how it connects with social services, so why it is so important to you. So stay with us here on Muskogee Radio here on the Brew, 1240 AM, 106.3 FM, and we'll be right back.
Who am I? Am I Indian? Just 'cause I'm a girl from the res, don't make things up about me. What if I move away? Then who am I? Some kids try meth just to escape, but then I think about my grandma, my little brother, my beadwork, my poetry, and I think, I like who I am, and I know meth is not for me.
Check out ncai.org, a message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
The Muskogee Market is having a back-to-school sale for t-shirts. If you buy one, you get 10% off. Buy two, get 20% off. Or buy three or more, get 30% off. For more information and the dates on this, go to the MuskogeeMedia.com or their social media websites.
Lindsay, we're going to ask you to repeat that. There's some good information there, and I think we might have missed the first part of it.
All right. There's a back-to-school sale going on with the Muskogee Market. If you buy one shirt, you can get 10% off. If you buy two, get 20% off. Or if you buy three or more, you can get 30% off. For more information, go to the social media websites of Muskogee Media or their muskogeemedia.com.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Appreciate you being with us. Now, we're going to move on to our second segment here. We're going to be talking about tribal registration cards and how it connects with social services. Joining us today is Mr. Al Colbert and Mvskoke Hardy. We have invited them in to talk about those two particular subjects. First of all, let's tackle the big one, Mr. Colbert. Now, we're talking about tribal card registration cards. I guess maybe you could define what that is first of all.
For registration cards, that's the citizenship cards that we issue to new applicants that are issued a roll number and become citizens. And then also that goes along with the replacement citizenship cards that they receive any time later on after that. What we ask for individuals who are getting replacements is that they come to either the Muskogee location or the Jinx location. As long as they have a primary ID and the old citizenship card, then we can go ahead and issue a new replacement citizenship card. If they don't have the old one, then there will be a $5 replacement fee. But we always ask that they do bring a primary form of ID, like a state ID or driver's license. If they do not have that, then they can always bring in their birth certificate and a secondary form of ID, which is usually like a Social Security card, to receive a replacement.
Make sure I understand this correctly. Are the old cards still valid or are they expiring?
For the old cards, they do have an expiration date. The expiration date is only for the information that is listed on that card. It doesn't interfere with anything regarding like your citizenship status. You are still a citizen, even if the expiration date has passed on that card. The only thing that we ask or recommend citizens to do is once you have like a address change or anything, or if that card does become expired, is to just go to, you can mail it in, or you can go to the Muskogee or Jinx location to replace that card, to get your information updated on that card and get a new picture and signature on the card as well.
Okay, now with the political season on us now, we've just had a slate of candidates file for office. Would the status of your card affect your ability to vote?
No, it would not. Like I said, in regards to the expiration date, it's just in regards to the information that's on the citizenship card, like your address and possibly your name if you had a name change. But you're still a citizen. There is additional verification, I believe, that's done through the election board. But just for the initial part of it, they can always show that citizenship card to get the correct information to the election board.
All right. Now, as an example of benefits of tribal membership, we have Mvskoke Harding in here from the school clothing program. Now, that program will or will not be affected by the status of these cards.
If it is expired, it will be. We have to have that card updated, because once we scan it in and everything, we do look at the expiration dates, and we have a lot of clients coming in with that expired card. We'll still take the application. We don't deny because the card is expired. But they will be put in a pending status until that card's updated. So the people that do come in with the cards will still accept their applications and stuff, but we'll refer them back to the citizenship office to get the card updated.
So in other words, if it is expired, they'll have to go back and get a new one to qualify.
Correct.
All right. Now, we have summer just now burning our tails up, and school year's down the line just a little bit. And your program, School Clothing, is really important for many of those students and things like that. Mm-hmm. So let me take a step back here and then have you explain what School Clothing is all about.
Okay, School Clothing, we offer the program to students all over the United States as long as they're 3 years of age, enrolled in a Head Start or a pre-K program up to 12th grade, and we also help college students as well. They have to be 24 years or younger, going full-time, and they have to have the citizenship card because we are tribally funded, so they have to be enrolled with Muskogee Creek Nation.
So you prove that you're serving tribal citizens,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
Now, what is available then under your program? Is there like a dollar limit? Is there a cap there? So what do you offer?
For Head Start through 5th grade, it's $200 per student, and then 6th grade through 12th grade is $250, and then college students is $150.
Okay, now if a student is qualified, then they come in with the proper forms and IDs, and then they would receive cash, a voucher, a check?
It's a check made out to whoever's head of household on the application.
Okay, and then at that point they can cash it and then go on to a merchant and
Yes.
purchase clothing. Now, do you have any guidelines or restrictions on the kinds of things that people purchase? These days, you can go blow $200 on a pair of sneakers real easy. Are you, let's say, discouraging that sort of thing?
We're not discouraging that because it's totally up to the parent on what they want to purchase. But our program, we don't do like school supplies or backpacks or anything like that. We refer them to the JOM program, or if they have an Indian education program, we'll refer them to them. But like I said, we have a checklist with our application on what's approved and not approved.
Okay, and for most families, there's going to be, of course, at least one school child, but most likely multiple, 2 to 3. And they would receive this benefit for each child.
Correct, yes.
Okay, rather than having to cut it up and turning into.
But on the
Awesome.
receipts, we do ask that they are separated by student, or if they're combined, we have to have them separated by what is purchased for each student.
Now, you said receipts, and that's a key part of this program. You have to prove what you did.
Correct, yes.
And without that, then you may be discontinued.
Yes, if you don't turn in receipts for whatever reason, you'll just be ineligible for that next year, and then you can reapply the year after. It's just 1 year that you don't receive assistance.
Okay, great. Now, Al, let me go back to you now. The registration card sort of proves your citizenship if it's needed. And without it, people are not qualified, ineligible for many tribal programs.
Not having the card, I wouldn't believe it would, not go into the fact that a person would not be able to apply for anything. Not only just with the citizenship card, identifying the individual as a Muskogee Creek citizen, but there's also other ways if an individual or a department is needing some type of enrollment verification of that individual, they can always contact the citizenship office, whether by fax or email, and then we can send a verification back within 5 minutes from receiving it. And we also have an enrollment verification website that would be accessible for departments if they're able to log in and get verification that way. But just because an individual may not have their card at that certain point in time, there's other ways to verify that individual is a citizen.
Now, citizenship implies you're eligible for benefits from the Muskogee Creek Nation, whether it's education or health or school clothing, as we've just heard.
Yes.
But it's not an ATM card. I mean, you don't get a big pile of cash just because you're a member, right?
No, it's just with the information that's on the actual ID, and with the information as far as like the expiration date, it is able to be used as a secondary form of ID for individuals that may not have, let's say, a state ID or something of that sort. But it is able to be used as a secondary form of ID for certain, for other purposes. But yeah, for the main part of it, the citizenship card does identify that individual as a citizen.
Yeah, now that's different. Other tribes have what they call a per capita. You get a chunk of their gambling money or whatever it is, but the Muskogee Creek Nation reinvests all of our cash into services and facilities
Yes,
for tribal
yeah.
members. So don't come in looking for a handout.
Yes, it's just the citizenship card. It only identifies the excuse me. It only identifies the individual as a citizen. There's nothing that, as far as money wise, that's associated with the card.
Right, but it would make you eligible, as they say, for scholarships and things.
Yes, for any other assistance or benefits, it does allow you to be
food distribution or
Yes.
things like that.
Yes.
Oh boy, a block of cheese. Now the requirements then for a registration card. Let's run over them real quick so people can understand what they've got to bring in, prove that qualifies them.
Okay. For new applicants, that'll be completely different. Not necessarily as far as getting a replacement, but for new applicants that are submitting applications, what we look for is would they have to have the state certified birth certificate for the applicant, and that does exclude any type of city or county birth certificates that another state may provide to an individual. What we're looking for is the state certified birth certificate that has the state registrar's signature on there, and it does identify the state file number listed on that birth certificate. We also need the Social Security card, the actual Social Security card for the individual, and then also we need, if the applicant is under the age of 18, then we require the parents or legal guardians state ID or driver's license to go along with that. If the applicant's over the age of 18, well then, if they don't have their state ID or driver's license, then we can still, take the birth certificate and the Social Security card as a form of identification for them. Now, for replacements, we always want to check the identity of the individual whenever they are trying to receive a replacement citizenship card. So that for the primary IDs, what we would be looking for is the state ID or driver's license for that individual. It would be the other states if an individual is coming, like, say, from Arkansas or Missouri. They would just need to make sure that they have their state ID or driver's license with them coming in. And then, again, for the $5 replacement fee, that's only for lost cards that you're not able to present at that time. If you do have the old citizenship card that was issued to you previously, then that you can submit that to our office when getting a replacement, and that'll waive the $5 fee.
All right. Just out of curiosity, do you have many people coming in with false applications, some made-up tribe or something like that, or some connections trying to get an ID?
Not as far as anything fraudulent like that. For applications, we always want to process the applications. Whether an individual is linking back to to a original rollee on the Dawes Creek by Blood Rolls. We treat all applications, the same. So if one of them does come in, we do have enrollment specialists that they're trained in looking at birth certificates and Social Security cards and state IDs. So they're able to, if there is some type of fraudulent activity, then they would be able to look at that documentation to see if there's any type of inconsistencies with other IDs that we find and things like that, and it could lead to just further questions of that new applicant, just to kind of see what is being done.
So you need substantial ID and proof, in other words, right?
Yes, yeah. For everything, we always need the original or a certified copy of the birth certificate from the state vital records. We're not able to take any photocopies or anything like that. That's the reason why, looking for any type of fraudulent activity, or just making sure that birth certificate is from the state vital records.
Okay, so you have to be able to bring that, and it's got to be more than say, look, I got high cheekbones.
Yeah, we do look at the documentation, and again, this can all be done through the mail as well. The only thing that does remain the original or certified copy is the birth certificate. For mail-in applications, we do allow them to attach a notarized statement to any other copies of like a state ID or driver's license or a social security card, we do receive those through the mail. But just for the lineage document, which is the birth certificate, we always request that that's either the original birth certificate that they received when the individual has been born, or they can get a certified copy from that state vital records.
Okay. As we wrap up here, Mvskoke, do you have a deadline for applications for the clothing program?
Yes, and we're calendar years, so we go from January through December, and this year it'll end December 31st.
Okay, so you want to make sure you get your name and information in to qualify.
Correct.
All right, Al, if someone has questions or wants more information about new registration cards and citizenship, how do they get in touch with you?
They can always contact our office. Our main line is 918-732-7941. They can always get in touch with any individual in our office, and they'll be able to assist them, whether it be a new application or if they're just trying to receive a replacement citizenship card.
Okay, well, great. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you all making a little time on this beautiful morning to come in and talk with us. And we'll probably want to hear more from you as this process moves along, and particularly school clothing as it gets a little more important. Okay. So thank you right there. We're going to take a short pause and be back with more of Muskogee Radio.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Welcome back to Muskogee Radio here on the Brew in beautiful downtown Okmulgee. We're going to shift gears once again. I'm sure many people are familiar with the growing movement and support for a Native American Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, that has been pretty much replacing Columbus Day around the country, with many major metropolitan areas going that route and dropping that one for recognition of its Native people. That's been happening here in Oklahoma and in some of the major metropolitan areas, and now we've got some folks in with an idea that maybe Muskogee should be part of that growing trend and celebrate its Native heritage a little more than just having our name on their city. We'd like to welcome Brittany Cuevas and Megan Kelly into the studios. We appreciate you all motoring over from Muskogee and joining us here in the program.
Yes, thanks for having us.
All right. Now, we have seen many cities and towns around Oklahoma going this route and making these changes. I think Oklahoma City is still trying to figure itself out. But, you know, we were there in Tulsa when they made their big celebration. We've heard of other places. I'm still waiting to hear from Bug Tussle, but we haven't heard too much from other towns. But you want this to happen there in Muskogee, so let's get a good feel for what your movement's all about there. Who wants to start?
I'll start. This is Brittany. So our ultimate goal is to get Columbus Day changed into a national Native American holiday. And so I think with Muskogee and us wanting to host Indigenous Peoples Day, we want to distinguish ourselves and make it a 4-day weekend. So eventually it will become a Native American holiday, just like slip of the tongue, like a Cherokee holiday. Like, that's easy to say now because people are used to it. I want it to be easy Native American holiday. And so I think that would just distinguish Muskogee separate from Tulsa and Tahlequah. Tulsa is Native American Day, and we want to, as I would think, as North America, want to represent all Indigenous people in North America, because we don't want all the credit. We just want to be recognized, you know. Yeah. And so I am with Muskogee, Oklahoma Native American Association, and this just started in December. The city of Muskogee recognized Indigenous Peoples Day, and so this will be our first Indigenous Peoples Day celebrated by the city of Muskogee. And so we're making a whole weekend event. 25% of Muskogee County population is Native American, and it's not just Creek and not just Cherokee. It is Native Americans all over the United States, north, south. We're so diverse. We've got such a mixed subculture because we also have mixed races, mixed cultures, and so that makes us dynamic, and we have a big opportunity to do something there, but we always get looked over. So.
Okay, Megan, what do you think there? Why is this so important?
This is important because our people have been here first, and that's why we want to be established as as a group, as Native Americans, because we want people to know that the person that we've read about in the history books, he did not discover America because our people were already living here. This was already a living habitat. And so we want people to know the corrected version of history, that when he landed in America and called us Indians, maybe he was misconstrued of where he landed, because he didn't land in India, he landed in America. So that's why he gave us the terminology is Indians. And so we have to correct everyone. No, we're Muskogee Creek, or we're Cherokee, or Comanche, or Osage. And so that's why it's important that this can become a national recognized holiday for Native Americans, to let people know that, you know, this is the right history. What you read in the textbook as you're going to school is incorrect. And so we want everyone to, we want to bring awareness to people that this is the way that we were taught, and we are still strong. Our Native American people, we're doctors, we're lawyers, we're school teachers, we're artists, we have musicians that are Native, we have comedians that are Native, and so we are a diverse group, and we're thriving because we have a lot of Native-owned businesses. And so we just want to educate the people in the Muskogee community about our Native culture.
Let me ask you this, and I'll toss it out to either one of you. Muskogee is not something we've run across much as far as things in tribal affairs or relationships between different peoples. How would you all assess the relationship between the community of Muskogee and its Native American residents?
There is no relationship, kind of. There are subcultures within the relationships, so we want to establish a sense of community, and so we started this 501c3 so we could get our matriarchs, because our matriarchs are what is going to make all the difference. If we could all get along and get our people to change. I feel like Muskogee, with the Three Rivers, it's always been a traffic area, and then they added the train system. So east meets west, and I feel like that's our melting pot of Native American tribes. Like, we're so diverse there, and it's an opportunity to share with other people, because in our area, we're assimilated, we're mixed, and so we are unique, and we have a gift to offer everybody. Do you want to go over the schedule a little bit of the 4-day weekend?
Yeah, now, first of all, you have got this established. It is a happening thing, right?
It's happening right
Okay,
now.
well, let's start with the date, and then we'll look at your schedule.
Okay, the date is starting October 11th. It'll be the Friday, and we're going to end on October 14th, Indigenous Peoples Day, and we're going to finish with a big concert.
Oh, boy, who's playing?
IMC, Marcus Freehouse. He's from Oklahoma City, and he's really into Indigenous hip-hop as well as traditional.
Oh, okay. All right, next.
Our schedule. So Friday night, we're going to partner with a lot of other businesses and nonprofits in our town. So with Dana Tiger Legacy Cultural Learning, she's going to host a stop dance at her grounds that night in Muskogee to kick it off. Saturday we'll have a Native American Film Festival. Mark Williams with Choctaw Nation is interested, and Easton Crumbo, and we have a lot of people that it may be a 2-day event because who want to show their films. The Saturday evening we'll also have Native American comedy acts. One of them will be Brent Dio, and he's Yuchi from Tulsa, and the other one will be a guest comedian.
Would that be any chance that would be one of the 4 ladies of Native comedy by any chance?
Don't know yet.
No, being a little crafty here. Well,
Yes.
I know that a couple of them had been down in Eufaula, and did the health conference there and just knocked them silly. It was just marvelous to hear.
And that's how we can reach our people through comedy, because we take stuff so serious, but we make fun of it.
Oh, yeah. And I've been trying to get our own festival people to do this for a couple of years, but no success yet.
Yeah.
Now, how is the reaction to the establishment of this event? Is the city reacting well? Citizens, Indians, what do you hear?
Just a few weeks ago, we had a press release for the Muskogee Phoenix, and it was about our event that we had called the Talking Circle. And so this made the front page of the paper, and we talked about what the Talking Circle was going to be about, which we wanted to bring together as many people in the community that are interested in Native American culture. And so what they wanted to talk about was ongoing issues that are going on with tribal, anything that is an issue in our tribes, or if they were talking about something that happened in their past. This was just an open discussion for everybody to just get anything off of their chest that might have been concerning them. And so we had a free feed of hot dogs and sodas, and we had one of our members had a smudging ceremony. So we were seated off before we got to do the Talking Circle, and this brought 40 people together. We had that many people there at the Honor Heights Park, and this was a good turnout because this was in the newspaper, so the community knew about it, and we just hoped for everything to grow more. The more that we have things in Muskogee, from now until October, we want to double those numbers from 40. Maybe the next event that we'll have will be 80 or 100. So with the publicity that we can get from our local newspaper and radio station, then people will be able to, hey, that group, Mona, they're doing a great thing, and we should take part and, see what they're about. So it's always good to involve people that share an interest in Native American culture.
And we're getting support from different tribes, not just Creek and Cherokee, and that makes you feel so good, because sometimes it's hard to start something and versus Tulsa, because everybody knows about Tulsa, but they have bigger corporations there, they have more support. So I feel like we need to support our artists here in Muskogee, and a lot of people could come here. It's amazing. We have a lot to give in a rich history in Muskogee. Let's finish it off with are the day of. We're having a parade for missing and murdered Native American women and represent locally in Muskogee, because sex trafficking and everything's happening in our towns. Like, it's happening there too, and we need to have our people tell their stories, because they need to be heard, because we are important, and that's our main thing. We want them to have resources and to have their voices heard, because we so often get looked over in Muskogee.
Right. It's nice to hear that. Growing up in Tulsa, we never heard much about Muskogee. And as I've been watching, events unfold over the past few years, we'd still not heard much from Muskogee. But we know they're there. They've got the name, if nothing else.
Bacone College,
exactly.
The Murrow home. We have so many resources, and those people that go to Bacone College, they met their wives and everything there. I love hearing the stories, but sometimes they also get stuck in Muskogee too. A lot of so everybody has a relative from Muskogee. I could go to New York City, meet somebody, and they'll be, I know somebody from Muskogee, Oklahoma. Yeah. And I'm just amazed. It's a blessing for sure.
Well, that's actually a phenomenon that's you run across all across the nation. I mean, in my career, I wandered through about 45 or so states, and every time you run across an Indian community, do you know, or are you related to? And gosh, how many cousins do I have? Okay, well, now, if anyone wants some more information about this event and perhaps become part of it, how do they go about that?
Okay, so our biggest platform right now is Facebook, Muskogee, Oklahoma Native American Association, and we abbreviated it to MONA, M-O-N-A-A. It sounds like Moana, so that'll kind of help you out. And we also have our phone number, 918-951-1716, and we have our email address, Muskogee, OK, Native American Assoc @gmail.com. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, it can be. Well, I tell you what, we want to thank you so much, Brittany and Megan, for coming over from Muskogee to chat with us on the show. And we'll be making this invitation to people, too, to come to take part of it and represent our folks.
Okay.
Something you want to share there?
Last one. Our next meeting is August 9th at 6 p.m. at the Muskogee Indian Community Center across from Arrowhead Mall. And we're also having a bingo for a fundraiser the 17th at the same place, Muskogee Indian Community Center, 5 to 8.
Okay, well, the bingo part ought to be an attraction there. Okay, well, thank you once again for...
Mado and Wado.
Okay, gosh, you got both tribes in. Okay, cover both sides of the river there. All right, well, we have a few community announcements here, and sitting in with us today has been Lindsay Heck, who has also been an intern with us this summer, so you're interested in this profession, so practice it.
All right, so the Muskogee Creek Nation is hosting a Muskogee Youth Cultural Arts Mentorship for 10 Muskogee youths, ages 14 to 24. It has all kinds of cultural arts that include art, music, language, poetry, and a lot of other things. You need to apply by August 2nd of 2019. For more information, you can go to www.bit.ly/myartmentorship. Also, you can call 918-549-2557.
Wow, you sound really good. Maybe after my job for long. For graduates and alumni of Eufaula Dormitory, there's an alumni reunion. All former residents and their families are invited to the all-class reunion Saturday, September 28th from 12 to 5 at the Eufaula Dormitory. It's the same weekend as their reunion and football homecoming weekend. The deadline to RSVP is August 2nd. You might want to get a hold of them at, 580-319-1386.
The 2019 HOPE Conference for Suicide Awareness, Prevention, and Treatment will be August 21st to 22nd, 2019. This will be at the Riversport Casino. It's a free event. They'll be talking about survivors of suicide, building resilience in Native communities, substance abuse, veteran suicide, ethics, self-care, the LGBTQ/2 spirits. For more info on this event, you can go to the MCN Behavioral Health Prevention Programs or call at 918-758-1930.
All right, we wish you well in your career, and if you get a chance to wander back, please do. We'd like to have you with us again. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening to us here on Muskogee Radio. Gary Fife saying Mabo Hedget. Mado Mabo Hedget's good. You've been listening to Muskogee Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.